Hi, everyone. Thanks for being here. We're going to give it just another minute or so as people keep filtering in, and then we'll get started. Hi, everybody. So, welcome. I am Heidi Page, Principal Consultant at Azelia Labs. On behalf of myself and my colleagues, Sarah and Katerina, I'm delighted to welcome you to Azelia Labs' inaugural webinar, Doing More with Less, Practical Biosafety on a Budget. When we were planning a talk that we thought was going to be timely and relevant, this idea stood out immediately. I began my biosafety career in 2009 at the Case Western Reserve IBC. In my 16 years in this field, I've seen funding cuts and regulatory changes, but I've never seen a climate quite like this. We have faculty deeply worried about grant funding, government spending on safety is being scrutinized, and too many compliance colleagues are facing job insecurity, especially because when everything's going well, it can seem invisible. Safety and compliance can be easy to overlook because when everything's going right, it's quiet. But as professionals, we know that this is hard earned, and it's our job to maintain it even without the resources that we're used to. We can't solve all the challenges of our profession in 1 hour, and saving money on PPE won't guarantee a salary. But what we can do is share strategies to help you keep your biosafety programs effective, resilient, and maybe even resource positive, despite tighter budgets. We also know that travel and professional development are often the first things to go when budgets get tight. So Azelia Labs is committed to providing free or low-cost webinars and courses to help our colleagues maintain their credentials and expertise over this time. We've applied for credentialing maintenance points for this event, and we'll send out an email to all the participants once we hear back on that. In these unprecedented times, they're challenging, yes, but they also offer moments of innovation. It's an interesting time to be a biosafety professional. So with that, let's move on to our speakers. Dr. Sarah Ziegler is a seasoned biosafety executive with over 13 years of experience in high containment operations, IBC compliance, biorisk management. Sarah is a registered biosafety professional, specialist microbiologist, and certified biosafety professional. She's earned her PhD in biological and biomedical sciences. She's led complex design projects, including work on the National Bio and Agro Defense Facility, and is passionate about training, compliance, and safety culture. Dr. Katerina Semenyuk is a molecular biologist with nearly 20 years of experience in biotech and microbiology research. Since 2019, she has served in biosafety and lab safety leadership roles at USC, contract research organizations, and consulting firms. She is a registered biosafety professional recognized by ABSA and has a certificate in clinical trial design and management. Katerina is passionate about risk assessment, safety program development, and training, and she works to create safer research environments for organizations. If you have any questions, comments, or even suggestions during this webinar, please type them in the Q&A and we will address them at the end. And with that, please join me in welcoming Sarah and Katerina.
Thank you so much, Heidi, and thank you everyone for joining us today. I think Heidi hit on some really important points on why we wanted to do this topic today about funding cuts. And so, really, it comes down to funding cuts a hit, and you are told to cut your budget. Now, what are you going to do? And I feel like right now we're all feeling that squeeze when it comes to resources and biosafety. So what we want to focus on today is sharing some practical tips and strategies that can help you save money without compromising safety. And we're going to explore what's truly essential for a solid biosafety program and what's more of a nice to have. So some of these ideas might spark a little bit of debate. I may talk to you about cutting some things that you don't want to cut, but I'm hoping that we can have a thoughtful discussion about what really matters in making a great biosafety program. So I think the first question you need to ask is not just jumping into making cuts, but where is your money really going? And so to take a closer look at that, you need to look at the costs associated with your biosafety program. And to do this, we need to do a cost analysis. So this is really your crucial first step before you make any decisions about where you're going to cut costs. This cost analysis will help you understand where your money is going and identify areas where we can optimize your spending. To perform a cost analysis, you'll want to identify all of the costs associated with the biosafety program. This includes your people, your equipment, your supplies, your waste, all of those things. You need to categorize those costs into your different buckets, such as fixed versus variable costs, direct versus indirect costs, things of that nature. You need to quantify each of these costs using data from your financial records, your invoices, or even other sources. So sometimes these costs may actually come out of different areas of budgets, and I think you need to look at those as well. But by doing a thorough cost analysis, you can make informed decisions about where to allocate your resources and identify opportunities to save money without compromising safety. This approach is going to help you prioritize your spending and ensure that you're getting the most bang for your buck. By taking a data-driven approach, you're going to make smart decisions that support both your safety goals and your budget constraints. So when you take a closer look at the common cost drivers in biosafety program, here's a list of some of the most common ones we have. So there are a few big ticket items you can most definitely put at the top of your list. First off is probably going to be your personnel costs, and these are your man hours. In my opinion, this is probably something that gets overlooked a lot. The hours that you're spending and really trying to figure out where all of those hours are going. And not just in your program, but also you need to look at the lab hours that lab professionals or others are involved in implementing your program. This could be really significant cost driver. Next, you have your PPE, including everything from gloves, gowns, respirators, face shields, all of those things. You're going to have your training and education program. So this is another key cost driver. And this is not only for workshops and conferences that your team may go attend, but also any classes or programs that you implement that others have to attend. Another big chunk of your budget could be in waste disposal and management. So this includes the cost of disposing of your hazardous waste, as well as the cost of managing your waste stream and ensuring compliance with regulatory programs. You have regulatory compliance and auditing. So this can be another significant portion. This might be the cost for preparing and responding to audits, as well as the cost of implementing and maintaining compliance programs. If there are any permits that you have to pay for, that can also be in this bucket as well. You also have facility costs. This can include everything from energy to maintenance and repairs, all of that. This can be a significant cost, might not come directly from your budget, but something you should definitely look at. And then finally, you're going to have contracts with vendors, suppliers, service providers. This also can be significant as well. This may be something for equipment maintenance, waste disposal, or other services. One of the things when you look at all of these different buckets, you may see things that cross different places. For instance, you may have a contract for your waste disposal. So as you're doing this cost analysis, just make sure you're really consistent with where you're going to line all of these up to kind of bucketize where all of your costs are going. And really what this is going to do, it's going to help you to have a really clear picture about where your resources are going and how you can optimize your spending. So when you're conducting cost benefit analysis for your program, you need to start by identifying the costs like we discussed, and then the benefits that are associated with each component. because we really want to make sure we're making these costs in a very educated, or these cost cuts in a very educated way. So we need to assign a monetary value to each one, considering both direct expenses and then the potential long-term savings there might be in cutting the costs. You can calculate the return of investment, or ROI, for each of the components and determine its financial viability and prioritize resource allocation. By also tracking where incidents or near misses are occurring, you can pinpoint areas that might need to be prioritized or places you don't want to make these cuts. You can analyze where and why these incidents are occurring and assess the associated costs with the incidents. So then you can really talk about return of investment of putting your resources in these areas. And then conversely, if you focus on areas where you're not having incidents, maybe you have much lower risk, you can figure out what's working effectively, identify best practices, you can implement those other places, but also this may be a place where you can make some cuts that aren't going to have as much of an impact. Now, I know if we have something that's working really well, we don't want to touch it. We want it to keep going really well. But if you are truly at a critical place where you don't know where to make some cuts, those areas where things are going well might be some places where you have a little bit of overlap, or maybe you have a little bit of fluff. And so maybe making some cuts in those areas might be the easiest option for you. All right, so I'm going to I just did a couple little calculations here. Now, understand these are really rough numbers, but this is just kind of an example of some cost analysis you can do on your side. Use your real numbers of what you have. But personnel, I think, is one of those places, like really knowing where your hours are going, I think is important, because I think that's someplace you might be able to make some cuts. So for example, if you have a weekly staff meeting and it lasts 1 hour every week, and there are 5 people that come to your staff meeting, and these are just rough numbers, that staff meeting might be costing you about $200 a meeting, and it could add up to $8,000 to $12,000 a year just for that staff meeting. So if you need to, say, cut your budget by $5,000, why not cut that meeting back to every other week? Or maybe you can reduce the time from 1 hour to 30 minutes. Or maybe you can cut that even further and you can cover some of the same information in an email. We've all asked that question, could this meeting be an email? So maybe it's time to ask that question again. Another thing to think about, if you have a training class that lasts an hour and there are 30 people in that room, that training class might cost you somewhere in the realm of $1,300. Is it necessary for all the people to be there? Is it necessary for it to be 1 hour? Like, those are all questions you can ask yourself, and some easy ways to make some cuts. Another one, so if you've been a little bit more on the clinical side, I think this is a little bit more common, is just the overload and the amount of SOPs that might be there. But if you update an SOP and 50 people have to read it and it takes them 30 minutes to read it, that update to that SOP just cost you $1,000. So something just to think about. These are, things to think about. I'm not saying never update SOPs, of course, but I would just ask the question of, is that SOP update something that is really worth $1,000 right now? So I also wanted to look a little bit at equipment and energy efficiency. And I'm going to tell you, when I first started making this slide, I thought I was going to get on here and say, clean out your freezer. You're going to save so much money by taking a freezer away. And actually what I'm going to tell you is you may not save as much as you think. So an ultra low freezer running 24/7 costs you probably in the range of about $1,000 a year. That would be a new energy efficient freezer. If you have an older freezer, it may cost you $1,600 a year. These are national averages for energy. Of course, California is a little bit more expensive, so it varies by state. California is almost double in this cost. But I would argue that if it's going to take you 10 hours to clean out that freezer, are you really going to save that much money if you're only going to cut your energy budget down by $1,000? Something to think about. But conversely, your biosafety cabinet's almost costing you the same amount if you never turn it off. So that biosafety cabinet running continuously depends a lot by the model. Bs are going to be more expensive than As just because of energy draw plus conditioned air, all of those things. But that could be costing you $1,000. So if you just implemented a program where everyone turned off their biosafety cabinets when they're not in use, that could be saving you significant amounts of money on your energy efficiency. Also, this would be a place where maybe you want to think about replacing some of those older B cabinets with A2 cabinets that can be shut off. If you have a lot of B1 and B2s that you can't shut off, that might be something, if you do a cost analysis, it might be worth the money. And then, of course, if you are buying new equipment right now, you do have the funds to do that. I would focus a lot on your energy efficient models. I mean, they can save you $600 to $1,000 a year if you go with an energy efficient model versus some models that are not as energy efficient. But again, make sure you're doing these kind of cost analysis. All right. So really what this comes down to is making smart saving choices. Don't spend more money to save less. So I know it's hard sometimes. You just want to go in and you want to start cutting things, but really think about the amount of time, the amount of money you're spending to try to save money. Like I said before on the example with the freezer, it takes you 10 hours to clean out that freezer and it only saves you $600. Was that really worth it? The second thing I'm going to say is prioritizing your needs over wants. Make sure you're focusing on the essentials. I think this is going to be the hardest part because there are a lot of things that we want and we feel like it's essential in our program, but is it truly essential? And I think we need to be honest with ourselves about what we have to have right now and not necessarily what we want to have. Next, I would say consider buying in bulk or negotiating contracts with vendors. This can help you reduce costs on supplies and services and ensure you're getting the best possible price. Also, look at your old contracts and review them. Make sure that everything is up to date and you're absolutely getting the best price you can. If it's been a couple years since you looked at those, it might be possible for you to negotiate better terms. Also, if you can group your purchasing agreements with other departments, you might be able to share some services or reduce some of those costs as well, or even negotiate a better contract. Even, if it's possible, if you have a sister organization, you have another organization that's close by, could you guys negotiate a contract together and drive those costs down even further? Another smart strategy is to implement preventative maintenance. I know it might sound good to cut out your preventative maintenance program right now, but we all know that preventative maintenance is really there to reduce our repair costs. If we cut out preventative maintenance, cut out your PM right now, in the end, you're going to probably end up paying more to do repairs. And then, of course, remember, don't forget, leverage your online training resources, your webinars. There's lots of things online that are free or low cost that are going to help you stay up to date on your best practices, regulatory requirements, or even new strategies to save money. So if you've done all this, you're still feeling the crunch, leadership is still putting pressure on you, I think it's really important that you make sure, even when you're doing all this, that you communicate the value of your biosafety program to your leadership program. When they're looking at you, you want to make sure they understand what your value is. And by effectively communicating that and making a strong case, maybe you'll be able to keep a little bit more of your budget, keep a little bit more of your funding. So I would say right now is not the time to go silent. It's not the time to disappear from your leaders. It's the time to make sure they understand what you're doing and why it's important. I would say that right now, when you're communicating with leadership, it's also really important to use data and metrics. So one key strategy is using numbers. Usually those in administration and leadership roles, they like the numbers. So if you do this cost benefit analysis, you look where your money's going, you show how you can save money. Giving them hard data and numbers is really going to help. Make sure you emphasize the importance of biosafety in supporting the overall organization, focusing on good behaviors and the safety culture that you bring to the organization. Build those strong relationships with PIs, stakeholders, and leaderships, and engage them in the biosafety conversations. If you're talking with stakeholders about things that are occurring, the ways that you are helping, it's going to help make sure that they see you and see the importance of your program and allocate resources to you. Make sure your biosafety program is visible. If you can do that in some cost-effective ways like newsletters, safety tips, things of that nature, it's probably going to help. I would also say right now everyone's feeling the pinch. So having low cost recognition programs, things like that for other safety people or people in the lab is also going to help elevate your program. Another thing I would do when communicating your value of biosafety to leadership is to also highlight the true costs of accidents and incidents. So these costs are going to go far beyond financial penalties, and they have lasting impact on your organization. I mean, first off, they include physical harm and health issues. Of course, it's most critical. We want to make sure all of our people are safe, that they are not getting hurt, they don't have any long-term health consequences. That's one of our first priorities, and that's something we want to look at. Also, any accidents or incidents may have operational interruptions, reduced efficiency. So anytime an accident occurs, it's going to disrupt the operations. It could impact productivity, reduce efficiency, and this has a ripple effect across the whole organization. If you do have an accident, you may have mandatory investigations, compliance reporting. All of this is time consuming and resource intensive. A risk of legal action and compensation. This is actually, a worst case scenario, but something you can talk about. Accidents can lead to lawsuits, settlements, compensation agreements, and this is all costly and damages reputation. So the financial implications of an accident are just the tip of the iceberg. So when communicating with leadership, it's crucial to paint a clear picture of the potential consequences of the accident and the benefit of investing in biosafety. Also, not just accidents and incidents, but there's the hidden cost of noncompliance. So this is a significant risk for any organization. It's not just about somebody getting hurt. So this could include higher insurance premiums, because if you're not in compliance, your insurance premiums can increase. Lost grant opportunities. I mean, right now when we're trying to get funding as much as possible, going out of compliance can put that in danger. So you definitely don't want to lose those opportunities right now. You do not want to limit your ability to pursue important research or projects. Also, any non-compliance can damage your reputation, your credibility, and in the eyes of stakeholders or partners and publics, this is not something that you want. This can have long-term consequences for the organization. Of course, you can have fines and penalties. This is a direct cost. It can be significant and again, divert those resources you need away from important projects or programs that you have to have. So the cost of noncompliance can be significant, and it's essential that we prioritize compliance to avoid these risks. So really the long-term consequences of making, drastic budget cuts, you need to make sure that you're communicating these up. I mean, I think that we all can maybe make some cuts in our programs and not feel a pinch to that. It's not something we're going to feel long-term. But when we start making drastic cuts in our biosafety program, we need to make sure we communicate what those long-term consequences could be and communicate those across the organization. So these cutting costs may seem like short-term solutions, but it has lasting impacts. So some potential consequences might be, again, the loss of the public trust and confidence. So when safety is compromised or people hear that you're making cuts in your safety, public trust in the organization can be eroded. This can have long-term consequences for reputation and the ability to secure funding in the future. You also have decreased employee morale and retention. If employees feel that their safety is not a priority, morale can suffer and turnover can increase. Turnover has a cost associated with that as well. Anytime you're bringing on new people, there's an increased cost of training, loss of efficiency, all of those issues. So, and as well, not only with turnover, you can also lose expertise and knowledge as well. It also has a negative impact on research and innovation. So safety is essential for research. We all know that safe science is good science. If we start cutting out the safe part of that, the science is going to suffer as well. So when safety is compromised, our ability to conduct research and innovation can be impaired as well. You also have the potential for regulatory scrutiny and oversight. So if your safety program is inadequate, we may face increased regulatory scrutiny and oversight. This can lead to additional costs and administrative burdens. So prioritizing our safety program and investing in biosafety we can avoid these long-term consequences and ensure that our organization remains a safe and trusted place to work, which in the end actually helps us secure more funding and helps our organization overall. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and hand the presentation over to Katerina.
Okay. Thank you, Sarah. Let me quickly switch. Okay. You see my slides?
Looks good.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you. Hi, everyone. Oh, something happened. Just okay. It is great to be here with you today. My name is Katerina, and in this part of webinar, we will discuss more practical ways to ensure safety while keeping costs low. There is never enough money and enough people, especially with all changes, budget cuts, and rising operating costs we experience now. These challenges make it difficult, if not impossible, to plan effectively. So the cost of non-compliance is always high. So the current situation calls for creative solutions. So in this part of presentation, I will focus on potential solutions to ease the burden of understaffing, budget cuts, and escalating costs. So let's begin by talking about people. Having an insufficient number of personnel leads to heavier workloads and less time for creative solutions. As Sarah mentioned earlier, we should start by analyzing how time is allocated and identifying what tasks consume the most time. Is it paperwork, ABSA protocol reviews, providing guidance, or inspecting lab spaces? Well, I suspect that significant portion of time is spent answering emails that contain questions, requests for details, changes. Okay, if excessive paperwork and emails are taking up most of your time, it might be beneficial to maximize the use of templates for safety SOPs and exposure control plans, and also consider using fact sheets to complement the manuals. It will help researchers finding information quickly, as not everyone is good at navigating huge documents like manuals. This can save you time spent answering simple questions and editing homemade documents that labs create. We often underestimate how much time is consumed by email exchanges. Spending time in the lab can help reduce the need for emailing details, requests for clarifications, reminders, and so on. Being in the lab may help you to evaluate the existing safety training, see the safety SOPs in action, and identify areas for improvement. Updating training and improving safety SOPs requires relatively low effort, but it may have a huge impact. If you don't have time or budget to create new training programs or documents, as Sarah mentioned, make use of free resources whenever it's possible. Many of us had experience working alone at some point, so it is very important to remember that there are plenty of biosafety resources available, even if your institution currently cannot hire additional help or fund your professional development. Consider exploring non-traditional staffing options. This includes includes graduate students who may be interested in gaining experience in the field, part-time employees, or consultants who can help you with the 1-2 small tasks that you may not have time to address. Having safety representatives at the lab or departmental level could enhance communication and facilitate inspections and post-approval monitoring. Next step. Optimize the administration and operations of your IBC. It can save significant amount of time for both you and PIs who are actually whose time is cost a lot. The process should begin with reviewing and simplifying your IBC submission form. If the form contains unclear or excessive questions, reviewing it will consume valuable time, which, as we know, translates to money. If your institution has decided to discontinue the use of electronic compliance management system because of its high maintenance cost, consider creating a simplified submission system using standard Microsoft software. This approach works and can facilitate effective review and communication. As it was mentioned, every meeting, especially IBC meeting, incurs costs that may not be immediately apparent. The more people attending and the longer the meeting, the greater is expense. Ensure that your IBC is appropriately sized for your program and that time is spent efficiently during meetings. Consider distributing news and updates in the form of a newsletter to reduce meeting time. Finally, if your IBC reviews sponsor-initiated clinical trials, it may be worthwhile to request that the sponsor cover the review cost. This is what commercial IBCs do. If your institution is not currently doing this, it could be a good addition to your budget, and these funds could be used to hire part-time help. All right, enough talk about administrative work. Let's move on to the lab. While it's true that reducing spending on safety may lead to bad compromises, overcomplicating safety measures for low-risk research can also result in unnecessary expenses. It is important to focus on the safety measures that are truly necessary to comply with the regulatory requirements and address actual hazards rather than those that are merely like nice to have. A well-aligned program will definitely cost less. Well, we all know that being proactive is cheaper than dealing with the consequences. And instead of waiting for challenges to arise, we should anticipate them before they disrupt our work. That means looking ahead and building safety into our planning. And planning, it is wise to gather ideas from researchers, but this should be always done very carefully, as well as any kind of benchmarking. Low-cost improvements, such as decluttering lab spaces and enhancing lighting, can significantly improve overall safety in the lab at little or no cost. It depends on how cluttered it is the lab, of course, but it works. Okay, many labs will be struggling already with the limited funding, which can lead to increased sharing of space and equipment and desire to reuse supplies that are not meant to be reused. To address this, it is important to have a biosafety buyer's guide to standardize orders for PPE and other safety supplies. This is not only saves time during the review, but also helps ensure that labs receive appropriate items rather than opting for cheaper alternatives that may actually pose additional risks. Also, creating a simple map of research activities within large open or shared spaces can help reduce exposure or cross-contamination and generally improve the organization of workflows and use of shared equipment. And finally, it is absolutely essential to establish a clear institutional policy regarding the reuse of PPE. The policy should specify which items can be safely reused, how they should be decontaminated, and most importantly, which items should never be reused. So Sarah already mentioned some of the operating costs, and I'm going to add a little bit more on this topic. We need to assist labs in preventing costly mistakes as they try to make improvements and purchase new equipment, because this can also compromise safety. This is especially critical when lab is looking for low-cost alternatives. They must be assessed very carefully, and small and steady upgrades, they are easy to manage compared to huge projects. You can also save money through preventive maintenance. I just repeating it because this is really critical to avoid expensive breakdowns and expanding lifespan of critical equipment. And it's a good idea to start exploring possibility of small and local grants or maybe donations. Universities and especially companies may have a surplus lab equipment available at little or no cost. It is worth asking. And finally, again, building partnerships with nearby institutions can open doors to shared resources and for bulk contracts that could actually be cheaper. One more thing, waste management. We're all aware that hazardous waste disposal is very costly. The price of the disposal of infectious waste can vary between 30 cents to and $1.25 per pound. There are multiple factors affecting the cost, type of waste, volume, how it is packed, transportation distance to the treatment or disposal facility, and also treatment method. If your waste is primarily mixed waste, biological plus chemical, the cost will be even higher. So what simple steps can you take? Reevaluate your waste management practices. Consider examining contents of your biohazardous waste bins in the lab and discussing options with your current waste vendor and maybe potentially reaching out to others. You may not know that your waste actually is transported to different state, and it significantly influences the cost. Identify what goes into the mixed waste and find a way to fix that if it's possible and safe. And explore possibilities for waste to energy options. It may work, and most importantly, educate labs. This is the most complex thing, but again, it works because cutting waste disposal cost by even 10% can lead to significant savings. And that's all I have now. I hope you will find some of these ideas useful. Let's build smart, right-sized programs, protect your high-risk research, but never overlook BSL-2 labs where most incidents truly happen. And please share creative solutions with your colleagues. Thank you very much for joining us today. If you have questions or comments, we are going to open floor for discussion.
During the talk, we had two questions. One was about sharing the slides. Yes, we will absolutely share the slides, and I plan to post the video of the webinar somewhere where we can get it. I'll let everybody know where as soon as that's determined. And the other is that Jennifer Ramel would love to connect, and I think a lot of organizations would love to connect with those who are using Smartsheets or Microsoft Lists, not using protocol submission systems. I know for a while there, it was getting rid of paper was the whole big idea. Let's not do it on paper. It's too difficult. But I think that our software solutions have grown up a little bit, and using those that we have at our disposal are a great choice for those of us who are trying to be a little more frugal. So we'll wait and see if there are any other questions. I think, I'm not sure if I can unmute people if someone wants to raise a hand. Oh, I can. Or we'll give it a couple minutes, put it in the Q&A, raise a hand, or else we will just give everyone back a little time in their day. And yeah, I think that having maybe the house space on ABSA would allow for somewhere that we could share cost saving ideas right now.
I would love to see if anyone has some other cost saving ideas that they would like to put in the chat or put in the Q&A that they would like to share with the group. Some things that maybe like we didn't mention.
Yeah, we have a raised hand. Let's go for it. The mic is allowed. There you go, Joshua.
Sorry, I didn't have a comment there. I was trying to figure out my controls because I was going to say thumbs up to the house space idea, but sorry.
Take it. We'll take that back to ABSA. Okay. Joseph, your mic is unmuted.
There we go. Hey guys, great presentation. So there was a mention of insurance, and that is really rare for webinars like this, and I appreciate it because I came from the lab and now I'm on the insurance side. So on saving money there, I would say talk to your VP Finance, your CFO, whatever your whoever interacts with your insurance broker, and see if you can get linked up with your workers' comp carrier's risk control department or risk engineering or loss control department. They can often have, that's what I'm in, and they can often have a lot of free resources, services, probably less so on, BSL-3 biosafety type of stuff, but safety videos, training programs, things like that, they can assist with, and it should be complimentary.
That's an excellent resource. Thank you so much for sharing that.
I like Deborah's comment also about the Outlook templates for commonly sent emails. If you can automate anything, it's going to save you time. I think that's also a good place that you could cut costs as well.
Next, Siobhan.
Sorry, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Great, thanks so much. Thanks for the presentation, good information. To Joseph's point, we have partnered with like Grainger and Fisher before to have them come out and do inspections of like flammable safety cabinets and centrifuges. So they'll look at all of the rotors and give you feedback on those. And that helped with projecting costs so we could phase in replacements.
What a great idea. Okay. Thank you everyone so much for joining us today. We really hope that you found some great takeaways to go back to your leadership or implement in your lab spaces. And we appreciate you spending your time with us. So thank you and have a great rest of your week.
Thank you.
Thank you.